Welcome once again to another edition of Quoth Raven, Lewis Bright Raven. I'm your host, Lewis Bright Raven, 29-year veteran writer, illustrator, editor of comics, science fiction, fantasy, horror, and role-playing games. And tonight is Saturday, September 25th, and that means it is time for movie or TV talk. And this week's subject is Mortal Engines, the film by Peter Jackson from 2018, based on the novel by Philip Reeve. So, hope you guys have had a good week. And that the weekend's treating you right. It's been kind of a crazy day for me. Been running errands and doing some other stuff, and we got get stuff ready for the upcoming week, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that after we've done our review for the day. So let's get this thing started. Mortal Engines 2018, written by Fran Walsh, Philippa Boyens, and Peter Jackson, based on the Mortal Engines series by Philip Reeve. Directed by Christian Rivers, produced by Zane Weiner, Amanda Walker, Deborah Forte, Fran Walsh, and Peter Jackson. Starring Kira Hilmar, Robert Sheehan, Hugo Weaving, Jahai, I don't know how it's exactly pronounced, Ronan Raftery. I thought it would be Rafferty, but it's Raftery apparently. At least that's where it was when I looked at the credits. Lila George, Patrick Malahide, and Stephen Lang. The production companies were Universal Pictures, MRC, and Wingnut Films, distributed by Universal Pictures. It was released on December 14th, 2018 in the U.S., and it had a running time of 2 hours and 8 minutes. What it's about. The movie set more than 1,000 years after a cataclysmic conflict known as the 60-Minute War, say World War III, more or less. And the remnants of humanity on Earth regroup and form mobile cities known as traction cities. Under a philosophy known as municipal Darwinism, larger predator series hunt and absorb smaller settlements in the Great Hunting Ground, which includes Great Britain and continental Europe. In opposition, settlements of the Anti-Traction League have developed an alternative civilization consisting of static settlements, traditional non-mobile cities, largely located in Asia, led by Shanghai, formerly China, and protected by the Shield Wall. Relics of 21st century technology, such as toasters, computers, and smartphones, are valued by historians as old tech. The traction city of London captures a small Bavarian mining town called Salzgitter, absorbing its population and resources under the orders of Lord Mayor Magnus Crome. Tom Natsworthy, an apprentice historian, arrives at London's gut to collect Salzgitter's old tech for London's museum. Meanwhile, Hester Shaw, a masked 20-something woman among the Salzgitters, attempts to assassinate Thaddeus Valentine, the head of the Guild of Historians. But Tom intervenes and stops her before she can finish. She does stab Valentine, but not deep enough to kill. As you can see, this is the traction city of London. The front of the gates open up, and the smaller cities go into Maw, and it's kind of like going into, I don't know. Well, we'll talk about a little bit what it looks like a little bit later, but it's a nice design. I like the graphics of it. I like the rustic look of the British flag painted on the front. It has a kind of Terry Gilliam type feel to it, but it's, I don't know, it's interesting to look at, if nothing else. Anyway, Hester flees through the guts of London and disassembles the town. As it disassembles the town it just absorbed, and that's what I'm talking about. When it goes into the guts of the city, and there's like all these different blades and claws and other things that start tearing apart the city. that absorbs and burns it and consumes it, basically. Anyway, Tom is pursuing her closely behind a maze of disintegrating buildings. Tom Hesters follows Hester to a chute. Hester escapes, but not before telling him that Valentine had murdered her mother and scarred her face. He does pull her mask off, and you can see there's a long scar. You'll see the scar a little bit in one of the photos. But Valentine shows up immediately afterwards, after she escapes. And when Tom informs Valentine of this revelation that she had informed him of, he pushes Tom over the edge into the chute after her, seemingly to their apparent deaths. Now you see Hester with her mask on, and Tom Knotsworthy. Tom and Hester are forced to work together to traverse the hunting ground, surviving Southies, which are scavengers on a night hunt, and finding refuge in a vehicle called Scuttlebug. But it turns out the owners have actually locked them into a cell, intending to sell them as slaves. Hester confides that as they rest, that Valentine killed her archaeologist mother Pandora, which is a cute name. Nice ironic name. There's something of. After stealing a piece of old tech that she found in a dig in the dead continent of the Americas, while young Hester escaped with a necklace that her mother gave her. Meanwhile, Valentine frees Shrike, who's a reanimated cyborg known as a stalker from the offshore walking prison Sharkmoor, to find and kill Hester. Shrike has his own history as Hester, and it's not so much that he makes a deal with Valentine, but he just wants to get to Hester on his own for his own reasons. That'll be revealed shortly. Tom figures out a way to escape their cell, but Hester has been wounded in the leg, and she doesn't think she can make the jump out the bottom of the room. She tells him to go on without her, but he refuses to leave her behind. She's annoyed with him, telling him that she would have left him behind if their positions were reversed, as they are marched out to the slave market. At the slave market of Rustwater in the Outlands, Tom and Hester are rescued by Anti-Traction League agent Anna Fang. See bottom right. Of course, on the left is Thaddeus Valentine, played by Hugo Weaving. During the chaos, they are pursued by Shrike, whom Hester reveals that she knows. After they escape, and they're on their way to safe haven, known as Air Haven, actually. Hester explains that Shrike had found and raised her after she had escaped Valentine, and she promised to let him turn her into a stalker like himself. She would have even kept this promise, but after discovering that London had entered the great hunting ground, giving her a chance to kill Valentine in vengeance for killing her mother Pandora, she left him. This seeming betrayal has outraged Shrike and has left him driven to end her. Back in London, Valentine's good-natured daughter, Catherine, grows estranged from her father, especially after apprentice engineer Beavis Pod informs her that he saw her father shove Tom down the chute, and they learn Valentine's energy project in the repurposed St. Paul's Cathedral at the top of the London city. Traction City is more than it seems after they use a secret passage from the London Library up to the cathedral. It's not an energy project at all. It's a quantum energy gun. Hester and Tom travel on Anna's airship, the Jenny Hanover, to the airborne city Airhaven, meeting other Anti-Traction League members. After questioning Hester, Tom realizes that her mother Pandora discovered a computer core for Medusa, a quantum energy-based superweapon used by the belligerents during the 60-minute war that instantly destroyed entire cities, albeit shattering the Earth's crust into 1,000 pieces in the process, and that as the pieces cooled and the whole crust of the Earth shifted, it rearranged all the former continents. As you see, this is a picture of Anna Fang piloting with Tom and Hester riding behind to Airhaven, and you really can't see the scar in this on Hester's face in this photo. The scar should have been a lot more pronounced than it is, but they don't want to make the girl look too ugly. So, makes sense, I guess. Anyway, Thomas realized what Valentine has done, and if Medusa is allowed to be charged and used, London will destroy the world. The anti-traction members start strategizing a plan to attack London when Shrike arrives on Airhaven, having followed them in a stolen airship. Shrike is so obsessed with killing Hester that he destroys Airhaven in the process, burning it. But when he traps Tom and Hester and Tom tries to protect her, as Shrike is about to strike the killing blow to Tom, Hester freaks out and begs him to spare Tom. Shrike realizes that Hester is in love with Tom, and to his own horror, that he would be destroying her heart and spirit if he forced her to become like him. Thus, he basically shuts himself down and commits suicide. Or at least that's how I took it. Some people say he was injured and he died from his injuries, but that's how I chose to look at that particular scene. This is a picture of Shrike, and then the picture of Tom and Hester. You can see a little bit of the scar running across the one's cheek, but not really. This is my response to this whole scene, though. Are you nuts? We're thousands of feet in the air and you're burning everything down? I never said he was smart, Tom. But anyway, Shrike does tell Hester that he forgives her and releases her from her promise as he expires. Hester is both probably relieved and grief-stricken at the same time at this moment, but the duo have no time for her to linger on things or take Shrike with them, as they have to get off Airhaven to Anna's ship as Airhaven burns to cinders. As Hester, Tom, and Anna travel to the shield wall of Batmangumpa, yes, that's what the name was, with the surviving anti-tractionists, Valentine kills Chrome in a coup and musters support from Londoners by vowing to destroy the shield wall of Medusa and lead them to a new hunting ground in Asia. Arriving at the shield wall, Anna convinces Shanghai Governor Quan to launch the anti-tractionist airship fleet against London, but Medusa destroys the fleet and blasts a hole through the shield wall. After coming upon a stone carving of Medusa, however, on the other side of the shield wall in Asia, Hester discovers that her mother's necklace hides a crash drive, which is a kill switch for Medusa. Now here you can see a little bit better picture of our heroine Hester, and you can see the scar that runs across her left cheek down to the corner of her mouth and across the chin. It looks much more pronounced in the film than some of these stills. But, it's supposed to be a knife wound that she got when she was attacked by Valentine when he killed her mother. Because she tried to save her mom, and he turned around and basically backhanded her with the blade in his hand. Mm-hmm. So, Hester, Tom, Anna, and her remaining anti-tractionists lead a raid against London, braving the city's anti-aircraft guns, and the tactic is to get Hester to the cathedral and shut down Medusa. Hester and Anna infiltrate St. Paul's, while Tom takes the Ginny Hanover and flies around, waiting for them to get back. And though Valentine mortally wounds Anna during a sword duel, it's enough of a distraction that Hester's able to get the crash drive plugged in and destroy Medusa with the crash drive and shut it down. Enraged and driven to madness, Valentine orders a last-ditch attempt to destroy the shield wall by killing London's tractor control crew, putting it in locked forward gear, basically, and put the city on full throttle on a collision course with the wall. Tom realizes this, and he realizes that it's going to destroy both London and the wall. And with Catherine's help, that's Valentine's daughter, he uses the Ginny Hanover ship to destroy London's engine by flying into the guts of London and basically blasting the centerpieces and everything so that it just kills the city from within. Hester catches up and fights Valentine aboard his airship as Valentine flees, where he reveals that he's her father, which, this kind of harkens a little bit back to Vader being Luke's father in Star Wars. I think that this is not the most original thing, but it freezes her enough for her to stop, and he's going to kill her. But Tom rescues her and shoots down Valentine's ship, which is crushed by London's slowing tracks as his ship crashes and he's on the ground, and London just happens to run over him, basically, killing him. With London now stopped, Hester laughs victoriously while lying down on the back end of the Jenny Hanover airship. The surviving Londoners, now led by Catherine, make peace with the anti-tractionists of Shanghai. As Governor Kwan welcomes the Londoners, Tom and Hester embrace each other and leave in a Jenny Hanover together to see the world. And that's pretty much the movie. Now, you might think I've spoiled a lot of stuff. I really haven't. There's a lot of interesting elements of storytelling. There's a lot of good things to see visually, dynamic-wise. It's a very interesting film, but it did not do well in the box office. And we'll talk about that and why in just a few moments. Now, I remember wanting to see this when it came out in the theater, but none of my friends wanted to see it. And for those of you who don't know how I do things, I usually don't go to the theater unless I have people to go with. I don't like going to the theater alone. So I never went to see it in the theater, and I didn't really ever get around to seeing the film until just recently. Unfortunately, this film was a box office bomb. It only earned $83.7 million against a $100 to $150 million estimated budget. I'm not sure why, though. It's a perfectly enjoyable movie. Now, there are some speculative reasons. Perhaps it was because they came out at the same time as movies like Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, Clint Eastwood's movie The Mule, and Aquaman. At least 2 of the 3 of those films were burying it, most likely. And I do think that American movie critics were far too harsh on the film. They did have some valid points, and we'll talk about some of those criticisms. Yes, the movie is derivative visually in some ways, and there seem to be a lot of callbacks of scenes that will remind you of other classic movies, such as the Mad Max films, Jackson's own Lord of the Rings films, and Star Wars. So much so that there will be spots where it might be so noticeable that one's recognition of that similar scene or element might take you out of the movie, and I guess that's a fair criticism, but there's only so much Jackson can do. He's working from source material, and if the source material is somewhat derivative of some of these things, then that's what you're going to get. But what American critics clearly did not bother to do is read the source material and understand why things were done the way they were done and how they were done, where and why. Another thing that Americans did was unjustly judge the screenplay and filmmaking comparative to Jackson's Lord of the Rings trilogy. You have to keep in mind that this film was pre-produced and was written and pre-produced in less than a year's time, and that the filming itself was completed in under 3 months. You have to compare that to the 8 years it took to film the Lord of the Rings trilogies, and then it was another year and a half on The Hobbit. So you're talking almost 10 years of filming and production for Lord of the Rings versus 3 months for this movie. I'm sure if they had taken multiple years to produce and film not just Mortal Engines, but the subsequent books in Reeves's series, it would have probably measured up to the higher standard. But I don't think Hollywood had the same kind of belief in this project that they did in Lord of the Rings, because even though the books are good, they're, Reeves's books are not exactly a they're international bestsellers, but they're not um, as beloved and internationally renowned as Lord of the Rings. So, with that in mind, while I do understand some of the criticisms thrown in at the film in this regard, um, examples I did mention already, the revealed by Valentine that he's um, Hester's father, the Medusa breaking the wall scene with the energy gun is very similar in design to the special effect of the breach of the deeping wall at the Battle of Helm's Deep in the Two Towers. Part of the Lord of the Rings. It's also reminiscent of the same effect that destroyed Mount Doom in Lord of the Rings. The kind of like that energy sunburst effect that it expands out and destroys things. That was kind of the same kind of effect. So I guess that you could say, okay, they're getting a little bit lazy there. This case of the scene with Hester and Tom running through the guts of London as it tears the Bavarian village does harken back to the droid factory segment in Attack of the Clones, where Padme and Anakin are trying to evade the mechanisms. So I get it. And I do feel that there's some valid criticism there, but I also feel that the film does try to make them different enough, even if those visual sensibilities were close enough to recognize. Now, another thing that might be why the film did so poorly is that the only cast member that really had any international following is Hugo Weaving as Valentine, who again is playing the villain. And well, I don't know, maybe people are just tired of seeing him play the villain. I don't know. Well, I do think that the younger cast members, Hera Hilmar as Hester, Robert Sheehan as Tom, and Layla George as Catherine, were generally relative unknowns, although none of them should have been because all of them have experience. Sheehan has been in the Umbrella Academy and other things. Layla George has been in 2 or 3 other things. But this is kind of like their first real major production roles, I guess you could say. So none of them were exactly box office draws. Comparative to The Lord of the Rings, the cast was just chock full of award-winning actors from the start, and that gave the film certain box office appeal because you want to go see what Ian McKellen's going to do. You want to go see what Hugo Weaving's going to do. You're going to want to go see what I can't think of his name. It's escaping me. With the guy who played Saruman, who also plays Count Dooku in Star Wars. But that actor. And really Elijah Wood had some earlier success in film as well. So, there were other people there as well. So it had that, whereas most of the cast was relatively unknown to the general population. I'm also pretty sure that fans of the books, some of those fans felt that the cast should have been teenagers because the kids are the main characters are actually in their mid-teens in the books. But the truth is, I suspect that just wasn't realistic when it came to filming. So they aged them about another 5 or 6 years story-wise. That's partly due to the fact that hiring child or teen actors restricts filming because of educational reasons and safety precautions in different places. And a lot of the younger actors don't necessarily have the gravitas to pull off what was being done in the story. So, it doesn't really mean that they were disrespecting the books. They were just doing what was more effective in terms of a film. And lastly, like I said, the Moral Engines book series just isn't anywhere near as popular as Lord of the Rings. So audiences probably just didn't know what it was and that they wanted to see it. The cast does a respectable job. and the script changes that are made are reasonable. The author himself, Reeve, thought that all the changes were superficial and that the heart of the story is all there, and I tend to agree. Now, could it have been a stronger film? Yes, but it's not a bomb or a stinker from what I watched. I give it a 3.5 stars. Now, there are other films, like I said, that this movie tends to be a little bit more reflective of or similar to. And again, I think, when you consider the time constraints, um, maybe Jackson took a little bit of shortcuts in terms of designs, or maybe the Weta special effects group and the director um, went a little bit too derivative. I don't know. Um, for a 2 hour and 8 minute film, there are some pacing issues that gave it a little bit of a lesser rating for me. Um, you really didn't get the sense that Tom and Hester were falling in love with each other. You did, but you didn't. Um, they didn't have enough time to develop it, I guess, or perhaps the actors didn't have the chemistry that people might think they should have. I think it was more that they just didn't really have it in the script as much. It was just too much plot to get through to really develop the romance. Um, and you got to remember there are differences in the book to the movie for time constraint. Um, Going from one place to another actually takes kind of like you watch Lord of the Rings. Why are these movies 3.5 hours long? Without the director's cut, because they filmed it to be more traditional and accurate to travel speeds as the people as the cast quested through uh, to get to Mount Doom. And here they didn't do that. Everything was relatively quickly from point to point to point, location to location for time constraints. And I think that if they'd had the chance to make the film breathe a little bit more, you would have got that element between the characters a little bit more intrinsically. And I think you'd have also realized the relationship between Catherine as Tom as well. But none of those relationships were really that well developed, and that might, I don't consider that a writing error, but a lot of critics would. I think it's more that the director just didn't have enough breathing room in the script or in the way he was filming the film to include that stuff. A lot of that stuff probably got left on the cutting room floor. Now, special effects wise, going back to look at the Shrike character, I was not overly impressed with his look. That's just a quick look at his face. Of course, he's supposed to be a cyborg of a sort. I wish they'd done something a little more unique and shown a little bit more of the zombified human flesh and skeletal system in the character. They really didn't. It would have made him look a lot more frightening and a lot more menacing than he appears in the film. But it's okay. They want to make the film more PG-13. They don't want to get it too frightening for kids who might come with their parents to see the film. So I get it. But in the film, Shrike's a lot, or in the book rather, Shrike's a lot more menacing and scary. But he's also, he's sympathetic in this film. I think he's a lot more sympathetic in the book because there's more time to breathe and more time of explanation of the relationship between him and Hester. But I do think that the director did a decent enough job to get the point across. And I think that's where the author Reeve was getting at, was certain things that were left out or certain things that were changed was done more for time constraint. But my advice to everyone on this is definitely to read the books by Philip Reeve. It's a series. Let me check that real quick again. I can't remember how many books there are. There's 5 books. There's Mortal Engines, Predator's Gold, Infernal Devices, A Darkling Plane, and Night Flights. Which, okay, so I guess there's 4 books because Night Flights is a collection. I don't know. There's at least 4 and possibly a 5th. I would say there's 4. And let's see. Yeah, there's 4. It's Mortal Engines, Predators, Gold, Infernal Devices, and the Darkling Plane. That's what I would recommend. And, I'm not going to go into all of the different stuff of that. But it's a pretty cool series. Could this film and its failure mean that we're not going to see the rest of the storylines adapted? Probably, unfortunately. But you don't really know. I mean, it could get adapted and rebooted for a television series with different actors, a little bit younger. But it would really, given how much money was invested into this film and how poorly it did at the box office, it would be very difficult to see someone picking it up unless they really did something completely different from the film, which they could do. I think it would work. I just don't know who would pick it up to run it. And our friend Midnight is here. Come here, boy. You want to be seen? Huh? You want attention? Come on. Come on, baby. Come on up here. There he is. There's the baby boy. There's the kitty. There he is. For those of you who always want to see the kitty at some point during the episode, there he is. He's had his dinner, so I don't know why he came to visit me, other than he just wants attention. Or maybe he's just bored with football games. That's what my dad's watching. But, yeah. But overall, like I said, 3.5 stars, and we'll see. Maybe I'll do a review of the actual book and the series of books down the road, and we can do a comparison between the film and the books at a later date. But that is pretty much all we've got for tonight as far as movie discussion. Now, tomorrow, Sunday, time to be determined, we will have a live draw session. Not sure what I'll be doing yet. That's like I said, it's all to be determined, but it will be at some time tomorrow, Sunday, the 26th of September. On Monday, we will be reviewing the latest previews catalog and its contents, which features the new Cowboy Bebop book based on the Netflix series that's forthcoming from Titan Books, among other things. And I'll probably get that, but we'll talk about that on Monday. And then on Tuesday, um, we're probably going to have the second themed episode, back to the original traditional um, first season stuff, where I have a theme, and I don't want to talk about exactly the topic just yet because I don't want to scare people off. It's a little bit controversial, maybe, but we'll see. We'll try and be not controversial about how we present it, but some people might be a little bit annoyed by the topic. We'll wait and see on Tuesday. Then on Thursday, we'll have our regular what did you get this week and reviews. And then next week, Saturday, I'm not exactly sure how many movies I'm going to get in, but I plan to get in at least two, possibly three films. Tenet, um, Will Smith's Gemini Man, and Prospect. So next week will be a full Saturday night 3-film discussion. Okay, so that's what's going on for the forthcoming week, and we will see you guys tomorrow on the live draw. If you like this video, or you think others might, please hit the like, share, and subscribe buttons to continue to get content from this channel. As always, I thank you for your support. If you want to reach me, you can talk about what you thought of the video. You can make suggestions of topics that you want me to discuss on the show. If you want to ask me about artwork that I'm doing or whatever, maybe commission me, you can reach me on Facebook at Lewis.BrightRaven, at Twitter at LewisBrightRave2. You can look at my artwork at deviantart.com/BrightRaven. You're watching Quoth the Raven, Lewis Bright Raven, exclusively on YouTube. You can email me at quotheravenlbr72@gmail.com. And if I don't get back to you on that email, try LewisBrightRaven@yahoo.com. We'll see you next time. Have a good one.